All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about global management today. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like this huge, high-stakes strategy game. You've got companies and entire countries playing against each other on a worldwide scale. It is so complex, super competitive, and it's literally changing the way our world works. So, let's get into it. So, at the very heart of this whole game is one really powerful idea: globalization. And what does that even mean? Well, in short, it's the collapse of time and distance. I mean, think about it. Thanks to technology, a meeting can happen between people on different continents in like a split second. Money can zip across the globe with just a few clicks. What this has done is create one giant, interconnected global market. And this image, well, it just perfectly captures the metaphor we're going to be using today: the global chessboard. See, if you really want to get a handle on global management, you've got to understand three things. First, the board itself. Second, the key players who are making all the moves. And of course, you have to know the rules of the game. All right, first up, let's talk about the board. Before we can even think about strategy, we need to get a lay of the land, Understand the landscape of this global competition. What does this whole interconnected world actually look like? Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? On this global chessboard, who's actually winning the game? I mean, in a world where pretty much every country is competing, how do you even measure who's out in front? Who are the top dogs on this board? And here you go. Here's the data. This is the 2025 competitiveness ranking, and it basically measures how good a country is at creating prosperity for its people. And take a look at who's topping the charts. You've got Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong. It's really powerful proof that in this new global economy, it's not always about sheer size. Sometimes being agile and having a great strategy is what really matters. Okay, so when you see a list like that, it naturally makes you wonder, right? It's obviously not just about having a massive economy. So what are the key ingredients? What really makes a country a power player on this global chessboard? And this breaks it down for us perfectly. It turns out a country's competitiveness really comes down to a mix of four key things. First, you need solid economic performance. We're talking good jobs, lots of trade. Then you need government efficiency, smart policies, stable institutions. Next up is business efficiency, creating an environment where companies can really innovate and grow. And finally, you need top-notch infrastructure, everything from roads and tech to a great education system. The countries that win are the ones that are firing on all four of these cylinders. Okay, so we've looked at the board. Now let's zoom in and talk about the players. And I don't mean the countries this time. I mean the individual managers who are out there trying to navigate this incredibly complex world. For them, it all comes down to mindset. So out on the global stage, you tend to see managers fall into one of two traps. On one side, you've got the ethnocentric manager. Their attitude is basically, we know best. They think their home country's way of doing things is just superior. And that, as you can imagine, can create some massive blind spots. Then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have the polycentric manager. Their motto is, they know best. They just assume the local managers in foreign offices know everything, which can stop the company from using its own powerful, proven strategies. So what's the sweet spot? Well, the best, most successful international managers are what we call geocentric. They have a truly global mindset. They're not stuck in that our way versus their way thinking. Instead, they ask a much smarter, much more powerful question. What's best is what's effective, no matter where the idea came from. And that is what allows them to see the entire board and make the smartest possible move every single time. All right, so that's the individual manager's mindset. Now let's zoom back out and look at the company as a whole. How do entire corporations plan their big entrance onto the global chessboard? What does their international playbook look like? So why even bother going global in the first place? What are these companies really looking for? Well, it's usually a few key things. Maybe they need access to supplies they can't get at home, or they want to tap into huge new markets full of customers. Sometimes it's about finding lower labor costs or getting access to finance capital. And, sometimes it's just a clever strategic move to dodge things like tariffs and import quotas. And when they decide to make the leap, there's a pretty clear path they can follow. Think of it like a ladder, where each rung you climb up means more risk, but also a lot more control. You can start on the bottom rung with something simple like global outsourcing, just using suppliers from other countries. The next step up might be importing and exporting goods. Climb a little higher, and you get to licensing your product or even franchising your entire business model. For an even bigger commitment, you could form a joint venture, partnering with a foreign company. And then at the very top of the ladder, you've got the wholly owned subsidiary, where you're not just partnering, you're buying or building the whole operation yourself. You are all in. Okay, so let's recap. We've got the board, we've got the players, and we've got the corporate playbook. That just leaves one last piece of the puzzle, the rules of the game. And when it comes to global trade, the rules are all about this constant push and pull, a battle between opening things up and shutting them down. So, one of the main defensive moves a country can make on this chessboard is called a tariff. It's actually pretty simple. It's just a tax on goods that are imported. The whole goal is to make foreign products more expensive, which, in theory, gives a leg up to your own local industries. It's kind of like building a protective financial wall around your country. Another really common barrier is the import quota. Now, instead of a tax, this is just a hard limit. A country will say, you can only import this much of this product, and that's it. The goal is exactly the same as a tariff, to protect domestic businesses. But here's the kicker for you and me. For the average consumer, both of these things, tariffs and quotas, almost always just lead to higher prices. So with all these walls and barriers going up, who's out there pushing back? Well, think of these big organizations as the referees of the whole game. You've got the World Trade Organization, or WTO, and their job is to monitor and enforce the trade agreements. Then there's the World Bank, which gives loans to developing nations so they can build up their infrastructure and compete better. And you have the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which tries to keep the flow of money between nations smooth and stable. Basically, their collective job is to keep the game as open and fair as possible. And all of this leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. When you look at this whole global chessboard, are trade barriers a necessary defense? Are they a smart move to protect your own industries and workers? Or are they just a move in a game where, in the long run, everybody ends up losing?